Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Fluffal Frightfur deck profile, and I figured what better time to do this than the holiday season, especially since we're going to be updating a basically Nightmare Before Christmas-ish kind of style deck, because you have the really happy-go-lucky side, and then you have the Demon Stuffed Animal, Five Nights at Freddy's adaptation of it, which is pretty cool, or the Tim Burton adaptation of it, which is pretty funny. So, anyways guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Let's get straight on this, but before we do, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, because we have all the awesome rewards down there, like getting your name searched for every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, or even getting to request deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Fluffal Dog. So Fluffal Dog is the searcher of the deck, that when this card is normal or special summon from your hand, you get to add a Frightfur or a Edgent monster or a Frightfur monster from your deck to your hand, but it has to be Edgent Sabers, because when this card was released, they only had Edgent Sabers out, and so they only worded it for Edgent Sabers. But you can only use each of its effects, or you can only use its effect once per turn. We then play 3 copies of Fluffal Penguin. Fluffal Penguin actually pumped up to 3 because of Toad going back to 2, or going back to 3 now. But its effect is really good because during your main phase, you can special summon 1 Fluffal monster from your hand, except another copy of itself, and you can only use each effect this card once while this card is faced on the field. That if this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material, for the fusion summon a Frightfur fusion monster, you get to draw 2 and then discard 1, which is really good just to dig into the deck to get the cards that you need. We then play 2 copies of Fluffal Dolphin. I love Fluffal Dolphin. It's probably my favorite Fluffal of all of them for the artwork. It's just so cute. But what this card does is it lets you target a toy vendor in your graveyard, set it, and if you do, you get to send a Fluffal or 1 Edgent Sabers from your deck to the graveyard. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon, you get to shuffle into the deck 1 of your fusion spells or polymerization spells that is banished or in the graveyard. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. We then play 3 copies of Fluffal Bear. So Fluffal Bear is a good card in the deck too, because you get to send this card from your hand to the graveyard to set a toy vendor directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone, or tribute it on your side of the field to target a polymerization in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, which is a pretty good effect just to be able to get you card advantage pretty quickly. We then play 2 copies of Fluffal Wing. I still think 2 Fluffal Wing is fine. I used to play it at 3, but I think 2 is fine because it clogs a little bit at 3. But what this card does is if this card is in your graveyard and you control toy vendor, you can banish this card from your grave, target a Fluffal monster in your grave, banish it, and if you do, draw a card. Then you can send a toy vendor you control to the graveyard, and if you do, draw another card, and then the toy vendor lets you add a deck card from your deck to your hand to essentially get a +3 off this card banishing from the graveyard, which is really good. We then play, for the 1 of Fluffal monsters, we're playing a single copy of Fluffal Owl. Fluffal Owl is kind of like a walking polymerization, and when it's normal or special summon, you can add a polymerization from your deck to your hand, and you can pay 500 life points to fusion summon into any Frightfur monster in your X deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. 1 copy of Fluffal Cat. This card, if it's used as fusion material, can be brought back. You can bring back a polymerization from your graveyard back to your hand. 1 copy of Sheep can bounce a Fluffal monster from your side of the field to your hand to special summon this card, and then you get to return 1 other Fluffal monster to your hand and then special summon an Edgent monster from your hand or graveyard, which is pretty good. We then play 3 copies of Edgent Scythe. Edgent Scythe is a really good card because during your opponent's main phase, you can quick effect reveal this card in your hand and then fusion summon 1 Frightfur fusion monster from your X deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, including this card in your hand. And if a Frightfur fusion monster you control would be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use each effect this card once per turn. So basically during turn 1, you can fusion summon if you go second, which this deck does function a lot better going second, and even with Scythe coming out in the last set, or the previous to last set, in Rise of the Duelist, this card became insane because you can fusion summon into Cruel Whale during your opponent's turn, during the very first turn, so it's never really not your turn. We then play 3 copies of Edgent Chain. Edgent Chain is pretty good in the deck too, because if this card declares an attack, you can add an Edgent Chain from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent from your hand to the graveyard or field to the graveyard, then you can add a Frightfur card from your deck to your hand, which can be your copies of your Frightfur Repair or Frightfur Fusion, or even like one of the other cards that you play in the deck, like Frightfur Patchwork. We then play a single copy of Edgent Sabers. Edgem Sabers is ridiculously good in this deck because it has a really good effect in the graveyard, and it's a really good combo piece in the deck that has the ability that if this card's in your graveyard, you can place a card from your hand on top of your deck, and then special summon this card in defense position. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. You can replace this if you want to. I just love Ash Blossom as a hand trap, but you can replace this if you want to play 3 copies of Forbidden Droplets, if you want to play triple Tactical Talents, if you want to play 1 copy of Instant Fusion, 1 copy of Magical Midbreak Field, and a copy of, say, Call by the Grave, you can do that as well. This card is basically, or this position is basically an open slot for any hand trap or protection card that you want. So if you want to play Droplets, I know a lot of people play Droplets. I play tested Droplets in this deck and liked it, but I just really liked having Ash Blossom instead. So it's totally up to you how you play the deck, and I wanted to make it a little bit more budget, so I took out the Droplets for the Ash Blossoms. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we are going to be playing 1 copy of Frightfur Repair. So Frightfur Repair is a card that you're going to usually send from your deck to the graveyard for the effect of Cruel Whale that has the ability to let you target a Frightfur Fusion monster in your graveyard, return to the extra deck. Then you can special summon a Fluffal or an Edgem monster from your graveyard. And this is the really good effect of this card, that you can banish it from your hand or from your graveyard, special summon a Fluffal or an Edgem monster from your hand, which is why you usually send it off of Cruel Whale to the graveyard off its effect to be able to resolve it later, to be able to special summon something from your hand. We then play a single copy of Frightfur Fusion, which is essentially Miracle Fusion for the deck to be able to use your Frightfur and your Fluffal and your Edgem monsters in the graveyard to be able to fusion summon into your Frightfur monsters. 3 copies of Polymerization, because you can't play the deck without Polymerization because it's a fusion deck. Guess what? You have to play Polymerization. This card lets you fusion summon monsters from your extra deck. We then play 3 copies of Frightfur Patchwork. So Frightfur Patchwork is probably the single best card in the entire deck, with the ability to let you add an Edgem monster and a Polymerization from your deck to your hand, which is a ridiculously good search card in this deck to be able to grab literally 2 cards. It's a +1 in this deck, and it is a hard once per turn, but it is probably the single best card in the entire deck. We then play 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial Goods is really good in this deck, haha, because what it does is you get to send Toy Vendor from your deck to the graveyard to resolve its effect, or Frightfur Repair. So we then play for the last 3 cards in the main deck. We're going to be playing 3 copies of Toy Vendor, being the final 3 in the deck. That this card lets you discard a card from your hand to draw a card, then show it to your opponent, and if it's a Fluffal monster, you can special summon a monster from your hand. Otherwise, discard the card that you drew, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add an Edgem Sabers or a Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, which is why Foolish Burial is really good because, or Foolish Burial Goods is really good because Goods is good, haha. What this card does is really funny because if you send this card to the graveyard, it's essentially a Rhoda, and it mills the deck for 1 as well, which is good. And also with Fluffal Wing, it gets you a draw 2, and then this gives you a search as well, so it gives you a +3 off the copy of Toy Vendor by banishing it, which if you guys have played any sort of Yu-Gi-Oh, you know that anything better than a +2 is insane, which is just really good. I mean, we have Pot of Greed that's banned, and it's a +1. This card is a +3 with Fluffal Wing. It is 2-card combo, but it's still really good. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we are going to be playing 2 copies of Frightfur Sabertooth. This card is the big boss monster of the entire deck and has an insane ability to let you, when it's fusion summoning, target 1 Frightfur monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and all Frightfur monsters you control gain 400 attack. And if this card was fusion summoned using 3 or more fusion monsters, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects or by battle, which is really good. And when you fusion summon it, you just basically get to revive one of the cards that you fusion summon using this card, because it revives the Frightfur monster that you used to summon this card, because it does require a Frightfur fusion monster and 1 or more Fluffal or Edgems, which you're always going to want to put a Fluffal and an Edgem. You're usually going to use either your copy of Frightfur Tiger, Frightfur Kraken, or Cruel Whale. Usually I use Cruel Whale because it just revives itself back with the Sabertooth. We then play a single copy of Frightfur Kraken. I did bump Kraken down to 1 because there was other cards in the deck that I just felt like were more important. So what this card does is once per turn, you can target 1 monster opponent controls and send it to the graveyard, and then this card cannot attack directly, turn it activates, and then this card can make a second attack during each battle phase. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card battled, you can change this card to defense position, which is pretty good. We then play 2 copies of Frightfur Tiger. Frightfur Tiger is a card that I personally love as a 2 of. I know a lot of people have just bumped this card down to 1 because it is still what it used to be, but you can only control 1 of it, and it's gives you that extra boost, which is really nice. But at the same time, it's very, very, very situational because you do have to pop cards on the field when you summon it. Because when this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used to summon this card. And then all Frightfur monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffal and or Frightfur monster you control, which is really good. But it gets you multiple pops. It can get you up to 2 pops upon summon. It can get you multiple ones depending on how many materials you want to throw into this, which is why I play this still at 2, because I still love this card as a 2 of. We then play 3 copies of Frightfur Cruel Whale. Cruel Whale is probably one of the more insane cards in the entire deck, which is why you see this card as a 3 of, and it's the starter card in the starter fusion at this point, that when this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy a card on both players' fields. And then once per turn, quick effect, you get to target 1 fusion monster you control, send 1 Frightfur card from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, except another copy of Cruel Whale, and if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to the original attack, half the original attack of the monster was sent to the graveyard, which is good, but at the same time, you really want to use this in with the copy of Frightfur Patchwork, or not Patchwork, but Frightfur Repair. Frightfur Repair is really good because you just get to special summon something from the deck. Or from the hand, I mean. We then play a single copy of True King of All Calamities because it dodged the ban list. I don't know how, but it did. But this card is really good because basically it's skill drain on the field, which is really nice, and you can use 2 Cruel Whales to summon this card because they're both level 9. We then play a single copy of Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is really good because this card can kind of shut down graveyards. You play water monsters in the deck to go into this card really easily, and it boosts up water monsters by 500, which can boost up Cruel Whale up to 31, which is pretty good. But this card is really, really good in the deck just to be able to help you shut down graveyards. Bahamut Shark because it can bring out Toad. Toad because it's brought out by Bahamut Shark. And this card basically negates all sorts of stuff, which is why you play this as a 1 of each. 1 copy of number 60, because number 60 can double the attack of a monster, and you need more of that in this deck to be able to win more. I mean, this deck has probably some of the highest attack ceilings, to be honest, outside of like desk bots, because desk bots get ridiculously high and go up into the 100,000s. This deck I've seen easily get into the 50,000s in damage, or it used to be able to get into the 50,000s in damage. We then play a single copy of Appaloosa because it's not too hard to put multiple monsters on the field that have different names to go into this card to give you additional negations. And since it is a fusion deck, you're going to play a single copy of Cross Sheet because it can revive cards from the graveyard to be able to get you additional monsters on the field. And by link summoning into this, fusion summoning into a Cruel Whale, and then special summoning back a monster, you already have 3 materials on your side of the field and a link 2 to be able to go directly into Appaloosa. So a fusion summon plus Cross Sheet equals Appaloosa to be able to get you those 3 negations on your side of the field, which is pretty good. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really cool deck to play with. I highly recommend it if you guys have not played with Frightfurs before. It's fairly budget if you're trying to pick up a really cute deck to play around with that's going to OTK and turn really scary very quickly. And it's probably one of the coolest decks that I've played with in a long time, being able to OTK, and I love the way that it actually plays, throwing out all the fusion monsters. I've actually played this deck since it was released, where all we had was Frightfur Bear as a boss monster, and I still loved it then. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely hit that bell on there so you can come part of the notification squad, and also check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have awesome rewards, you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.